The following morning, Frazier used Brett's car and drove to work. He had promised to drive Natalia home after work, and he couldn't do so without a car. As the workday was winding to a close and the staff began heading home, they filed out of the office and headed to their cars. Frazier followed everyone out, intent on waiting for Natalia by the vehicle so she wouldn't get annoyed with him. Surprisingly, an unexpectedly flashy car pulled into the parking lot. It was the same car that had been in the driveway the previous night. Murmurs of admiration ran through the Frandotech employees who were just getting to their cars. "Wow, look!" cried one of the female employees. "It's so beautiful. Who's driving it?" wondered another. "Oh my, look how handsome he is. I wonder if he's here to pick up his girlfriend." "Who cares? Let's go talk to him." The group of female employees approached the car as Nick stepped out of it. They surrounded him, all talking at once. The male employees, including Frazier, all stayed back with expressions of jealousy on their faces. Nick smiled smoothly and charmingly at the group of women. He talked to the prettiest ones in the crowd and slipped several of them his phone number. All the while, he seemed to know that Frazier was watching. Eventually, he looked up at Frazier and grinned derisively. Frazier seethed in anger at the gall of the other man. Natalia had been right in that he was a ladies' man. When Natalia finally came out of the building, she walked along with her personal assistant, Gina, while discussing something. "Natalia!" cried out two male voices, one from either side of her. Both of the women froze in startlement. Natalia looked up to see Nick to her left and Frazier to her right. The female employees murmured to one another in disappointment. "So, he's here for the boss. Why am I not surprised?" one of the women wondered aloud. "Isn't that just our luck? The wealthy ones get all the good guys," said another, sighing deeply in disappointment. "Isn't Director Laplace already married? Isn't she married to that security guard?" "Yeah, but he's a loser. Maybe she's finally realized she can do better. I mean, look at that handsome man. Who could turn him down?" When Nick heard their chattering, he became even more confident. He strode to Natalia and took out a small, exquisitely made box. "Natalia," he said, "when you were 7 years old, you told me that you loved necklaces. At the time, I couldn't afford a very nice one for you. But now, I want to give you the best." He opened the box lid and held it out to her so she could see inside. He then asked smoothly, "Do you like it?" Everyone could see the courting behavior he was displaying. He was only one step shy of falling to one knee with a rose and a ring. The women around them gasped in admiration. Frazier's expression darkened. "Nick is pushing his luck if he thinks he can just come here and start giving my wife presents," he thought bitterly. Nick fed off the women's reactions as he smoothly took out the necklace and raised it proudly. It glimmered as the jewels upon it caught the late afternoon light. "Wow, look," murmured one of the women. "That's the peacock bloom necklace. It's a limited edition. It's worth a fortune." Murmurs of appreciation swept through the onlookers. "Oh, I hope she accepts it," said one of the onlookers dreamily. "He's so romantic," cried another. "Why is she just standing there? She should take it already." Natalia stared at the necklace and the meaning behind it in fright. It was wonderful, and she wanted to say yes to the necklace, but she hesitated. Something about the moment seemed wrong and awkward. Furthermore, Frazier was looking on. "Natalia, do you no longer like necklaces?" Nick asked when he saw her hesitation. Of course I do," she answered. "Oh, I'm relieved. To tell you the truth, I was a bit nervous to give this to you. I knew that you were married, but I bought this for you a while back, and I hope that it's not too late to give it to you now." Natalia didn't know what to do. She was flattered by his words, and Frazier was not exactly the romantic type, but she was married now. Her gaze rested adoringly on the necklace. She so liked being treasured. Just as she was about to reach her hand, unable to control herself, the other male voice called out to her. "Natalia, I'm waiting to take you home. Hurry up and get in." The crowd's gaze shifted to look at Frazier. A hint of a sneer surfaced on Nick's face. He had initially thought that Frazier was intimidated by him because of the car. Now he realized that the man was not only weak, but also brainless. He thinks Natalia is going to choose his cheap little car over my luxurious one, he thought disdainfully. What an idiot for trying to put Natalia in such an embarrassing position. As if on cue, Natalia pulled her hand away from the necklace, her face turning red with shame. Oh, that was too close, she thought. I almost fell for it. If I had taken the necklace, it would almost be like I had cheated on my husband. I'm sorry, Nick, she said. This necklace is too valuable. I can't accept it. She was just about to walk toward Frazier when she hesitated. She glanced around at the crowd. Fortunately, Gina reacted quickly and dismissed the staff members. As the others drove away, Natalia walked up to Frazier and asked, Where did you get this car from? It couldn't be borrowed again, could it? Frazier smiled. Brett saw that I was doing well at my new job and decided to give me this car as a reward. He looked at the car. Compared to Nick's, it may not be quite as luxurious, but it was far from being a base model. It was an expensive vehicle. Natalia stared at him doubtfully. It seemed unlikely that a security guard should be rewarded with such a nice car, even if he was friends with the boss. Nick walked over to join them. Natalia, are you talking about Brett Andrews? Was he the one who hired you to run this company? She nodded. She didn't know why Nick was asking this. In other words, you're running the company, but you don't own it, Nick went on. Mr. Andrews is still the president of the company. He shook his head. That won't do. How about this? Tomorrow, I'll talk to him personally. I'll buy the company and give it to you. You'll be the owner of the company that way. With your ability, it's really a waste of your talent to work for others. No, there's no need to do that, Natalia said hesitantly. Though she dreamed of owning her own company, there was no way she could accept such a gift. Frazier, who was standing beside her, laughed suddenly. The nerve of this guy, he thought. As if he believes he has the power to force Brett to sell the company. If only he knew the truth. I dare him to try. It'll be a good show. Frazier, what are you laughing at? Natalia had noticed Frazier's laugh and glared at him angrily. It sounds like the company is going to be yours soon, and I'm not supposed to be happy for you? Frazier asked innocently. Nick sneered inwardly as he thought, What a loser. Nick was in a good mood, so he took out the necklace and offered it to Natalia again. I have nothing else to give you. Please, take it. Natalia saw that she couldn't push him away and was about to reach out her hand helplessly, but Frazier took it first. This peacock plume necklace really lives up to its name, he said, pretending to admire it. I hear that there's some story or legend behind it. Unfortunately, a legend is still just a legend. What do you mean? Nick asked, annoyed that Frazier had taken the necklace. Natalia glared at her husband too. What I mean is that, although your necklace is beautiful, it's not as pretty as the one I gave her. Nick scoffed. There was no way that Frazier could have purchased a necklace as expensive as this one. Even if the one that Frazier was holding was not a genuine piece, it was still valuable. Frazier! Natalia scolded. Nick patted her arm. Natalia, don't be angry. I'm sure the necklace Frazier got you is, nice. In fact, why don't you show it to me? Let's go back to your place. I promised to pay your parents a visit today anyway. Nick's mood had improved again. He would show the necklace to Natalia's family. They would admire it and encourage her to accept it. She would become his. He offered to follow them home, not fighting with Frazier for dibs on who she would ride with. When Dorothy saw Frazier's car, she scolded him again and even blurted out the matter of Frazier having to borrow a car once more. Nick pretended to stand up for Frazier and said, "Mrs. Laplace, you should understand that Frazier's only doing this for the family. He borrowed a car so that he doesn't have to spend money. I'm sure it's a perfectly nice car."
"Well, no, I'll never ride in it,"
Dorothy complained.
"Compared to your fine car, it's nothing."
When they went inside the house, Nick was surprised to find that James was also there. He and Nick embraced each other as if they were brothers by blood. Natalia felt a headache coming on. When she was young, Nick had often bribed James to let him take her out. Because of his good looks, she had attracted quite a bit of hatred. However, Nick had treated her as a prize and had always felt proud to show her off to others. "It's good to see you," James said. "What are you doing back in town?" "I could say the same for you," Nick answered. "Why didn't you tell me you were here? I would have come back sooner. Are you still with Pearl?" As the two men began talking, Dorothy gazed at them fondly. The two had been friends for a long time, and Dorothy had known it. She had arranged for James to be present when Nick visited. She hoped he would be able to help James out financially. "What's he doing here?" James asked, glancing at Frazier in dissatisfaction. Because he had always wished his sister would marry Nick, Frazier had become a stumbling block to that plan. "James, play nice," Nick said, though his tone portrayed something different. "He is your brother-in-law, after all, and he wants to show us the valuable necklace he got for Natalia." Frazier hadn't said that it was worth a lot. He had only said that it was nicer looking than the peacock plume. Nick had purposely misinterpreted the idea that it was worth much more than his necklace. Dorothy's eyes lit up when she heard this.
"What necklace? Did you get Natalia a necklace, Nick? How much is it worth?"
"Everyone. Guess how much this necklace is worth," Nick said. "Though, I'm sure Frazier's necklace will be even more valuable." Nick took out the necklace he had bought and showed it to everyone. Dorothy covered her mouth in surprise. Even if she knew little about necklaces, she could tell it was extraordinary.
"Is it worth 100,000?
Dorothy asked tentatively. 100,000 was enough for her to show off in the neighborhood. When she saw Nick shake his head and stretch out 5 fingers, Dorothy exclaimed,
500,000?
However, she watched as he shook his head again.
5 million?
She asked breathlessly. James broke in and asked mockingly, "Nick, did you steal it or something?" "Nope. This necklace came from one of the finest jewelry stores in the city. It's a limited edition. I was lucky to have stumbled across it. It's quite rare." Nick gazed at the necklace fondly, then snuck a glance at Natalia. Dorothy jumped in excitement when she heard his words.
"Did you buy this necklace for Natalia?" she asked.
"Of course. Your family has always been kind to me, and I've always kept that, and her, in my heart. As long as it's something she likes, I'm happy to buy it for her." He gazed at Natalia affectionately. Natalia felt very awkward. She didn't like the way Nick was looking at her. Dorothy saw Natalia's reaction and urged her.
"You must accept such a precious gift."
And Natalia became even more anxious. She didn't want to accept the gift, let alone acknowledge it. Just as she was hesitating, Frazier walked up to stand beside her. "Since this gift is so valuable, my wife can't possibly accept it." He specifically emphasized the term, "my wife," to demonstrate his position. Natalia had made it very clear that she didn't like Nick pestering her, so as her husband, he willingly stood up for her. A vicious look flashed across Nick's eyes as he replied warmly, "Don't be silly, Frazier. Natalia and I always played wedding games when we were kids. We always pretended to be married. Her relationship with me has long surpassed anyone else's." Dorothy, who was at the side, pushed Frazier away and said,
"You have no say here. Go and cook dinner."
James laughed cruelly.
"Yeah, get lost. As if you could have any opinion on the value of a necklace you could never afford on a security guard's salary."
"Be quiet, James," Natalia scolded her brother. She knew Frazier was being targeted because he had stood up for her, so she felt a little bad. Nick acted as if he didn't hear her. He stared at Frazier with a playful look and said, "I do recall you saying that you had bought a necklace that was even more beautiful than the peacock plume. I would love to take a look at it."
"As if Frazier could ever afford any kind of fine necklace," Dorothy said contemptuously. "He barely earns enough in a month to feed himself."
"Did you buy it off some dealer on the street?" James asked, laughing mockingly. Hostess, who had been sitting on the couch and reading the newspaper while everyone else talked, grunted. Natalia, who had spoken up for Frazier a moment before, wanted to find a hole and hide in it. The necklace Frazier had bought her was pretty. It was a fake and had only been a simple gift. Frankly speaking, it was something that others wouldn't want. The necklaces could never be compared.
"Frazier, I really shouldn't have accepted the necklace you gave me."
Natalia was angry, but she couldn't resist the pressure of her family and Nick. In the end, she reluctantly shuffled off to the bedroom to grab her jewelry box. It held all of her jewelry, from her locket to the necklace Frazier had recently given her. When Nick first saw the simple box, he snorted quietly. He knew the value of the necklace inside must be about the same as the box. She opened it carefully. James started to reach out to pick it up, but Natalia slapped his hand away and held the box in her arms. These were the necklaces that she most treasured, and each one contained precious memories that no one could touch.
"I just want to look," James whined. "Is that really a need to be so secretive?"
He was getting impatient.
"These belong to me," Natalia said coolly. "Without my permission, no one is allowed to touch this box."
She carefully took out the necklace Frazier had given her. Although it wasn't worth a lot of money, she considered it a precious treasure. She attributed this inexplicable emotion to the fact that Frazier had given it to her when she least expected it, and since it resembled the heart of the seas, it was indeed beautiful. Nick's eyes lit up when he saw the necklace in Natalia's hand. He had a keen eye for quality, and he realized Frazier had been serious. Compared to this necklace, the peacock plume was far less valuable. He turned his gaze on Frazier, studying him carefully.
"Natalia, why haven't I seen you wear this necklace before?"
Dorothy was also surprised at how extraordinary the necklace was. The stones looked real as they glittered in the light. She glanced at Frazier suspiciously. Natalia glared at her husband and said,
"This necklace was given to Frazier by someone else, so he gave it to me. That's all there is to it."
She hoped that they would see it as the fake it was and drop the matter.
"Someone gave it to you? You regifted it to my sister?"
James asked, overjoyed at the revelation.
"I knew you couldn't afford it. You can't afford to buy anything. Even Brett Andrews had to help you out by lending you a car. Who gave it to you?"
James sneered at Frazier as he thought.
He really is a cheapskate. He gave his wife a present that had been a gift to him. He gave her his leftovers. What did she ever see in this guy?
Frazier remained unfazed by James's mockery. He simply smiled. He chose not to refute the statements and beliefs because he knew no matter what he said, the value of the necklace was useless. They would never believe him. In fact, he knew that they didn't want to believe the truth. They would have to look at him with new eyes if they did.
"I'm asking you a question," James snapped.
irritated that Frazier had remained silent. He shoved his brother-in-law, trying to jolt him out of his apparent daze. Frazier stood solid, not moving a muscle. Natalia sighed. She was thoroughly disappointed by Frazier's weak and boneless look. She was tired of always having to stand up for him, as she said. He got it from the owner of Diamonds, Inc. He was shopping there with Lynn. James glanced at Frazier in surprise. Pearl had regularly pestered him to go shopping there, and they had gone often enough to be considered regulars. He knew that they carried quality items. He also knew that the cheaper items were sold on the first floor. He had assumed that was where Frazier had shopped, but he also knew that the store's owner rarely appeared on the first floor. He only served customers in the upper level and more expensive portions of the store. Only Nick, who was a big shot, could afford to shop on the upper floors.
Frazier, how do you know the owner of Diamonds, Inc.? James asked suspiciously. I know the owner well. I shop there often with Pearl. And why would he give you a necklace? Especially a valuable one. Who do you think you are?
If Frazier really did know the owner, then he was concerned for Nick's chances with Natalia. In fact, if Frazier gained any real standing in the wealthy community, it could be a setback they could not afford. Frazier looked around at everyone and began to sweat. He had never considered that James and Pearl often shopped at the jewelry store. He had not expected them to know the owner. He was worried that his secret might be revealed. While his brain was racing, unable to devise a suitable excuse, James released a cold bark and said,
But forget it. I can't get anything out of a useless person like you. I'll call in and find out the truth.
As he spoke, he dialed her number and put the call on speaker. Frazier was quite nervous. He didn't know what Lynn would say or how the matter would end.
Hi, big brother,
Lynn greeted when she answered.
What's up?
I have something to ask you, James said.
Okay, what do you want to know?
You and Frazier went to the jewelry store, Diamonds, Inc., correct?
Yes, we did.
Can you tell me about the necklace?
Lynn's reaction was intense as she asked.
Wait, did something happen to my brother-in-law?
No, don't worry, he's doing fine.
James glanced at Frazier, surprised his sister was showing concern for him. He cleared his throat and added,
However, if you don't properly explain what happened with the necklace, then something will happen to your brother-in-law.
You have to protect him, James, she said urgently.
Then Lynn told them everything that had happened at the store that day, leaving out the fact that she had colluded with Frazier. Otherwise, Natalia would definitely be angry if she found out what had happened to her.
I encouraged Frazier to take me to the top floor of the store. I hadn't been there yet and wanted to see it. The people on the top floor are different, more aggressive. Well, one of the men up there bullied me a bit and Frazier came to my defense. The owner of the store was embarrassed and he apologized and thanked Frazier by giving him the necklace.
Lynn had been careful with her words. She hadn't wanted to give away too many details, and she was afraid that she would expose her actions and cause Frazier more trouble. Ultimately, she told them it was a knockoff and not all that valuable. The owner of the store could confirm that. After she had stopped talking, they all believed her. Dorothy decided to scold her daughter to the phone.
Lynn, you're too bold. What made you think you could afford to go to that place? Didn't you know there could be trouble?
Then she rounded on Frazier and began to yell at him, too.
And you! What right do you think you have taking Lynn anywhere? If she so much as loses a single hair on her head, I would not let you off lightly.
Mom!
Lynn begged anxiously on the other end of the phone.
I pestered him to take me there. Don't blame him for everything.
If something happened, it would be too late.
Dorothy couldn't quell her anger. She couldn't bear to see Frazier do anything, so she always felt he was in the wrong. Nick watched and listened to the family bicker around him. He looked down at the floor and sneered to himself. He finally understood how useless Frazier really was, noticing how much the family despised him. He almost felt sorry for the man. Almost. He glanced over at Natalia, who was standing upright and still. She was always cool as jade and as lovely as ever. He knew that she was acting coldly toward him for now. After all, she was still married. But if she got divorced, he could pursue her freely. For now, out of respect for her reputation, he knew he had to back off. Instead, he could focus his efforts on taking Frazier down a few notches. If I can keep adding a little more fuel to the fire, he thought, Natalia will eventually see her worthless husband for what he truly is. Then, I can make my move.
Hey guys, Frazier here. Listen to the full episode of Unraveling the Son-In-Law exclusively on Pocket FM app. Click the link in description to install the app now.